All right, strap in, everyone, because this deep dive is going to be a wild one.
Hmm.
You folks sent in some seriously interesting stuff this time, an interview with a scholar. And get this, he actually practices magic, like real deal, not just reading about it in some ancient book.
Yeah, talk about a fascinating combo, right? Dr. Stephen Skinner, he's kind of a bridge between, well, academia and conjuring.
It's like Indiana Jones meets, I don't know, Merlin or something.
Uh-huh, exactly. And his background makes it even wilder.
Lay it on us.
Well, he started as a geography lecturer. I mean, how many geography lecturers end up summoning spirits?
Not enough, if you ask me.
Right. But he got super into Chinese magic, spent over 20 years living in Asia, studying it alongside all his Western grimoire knowledge.
Wait, so this guy can decipher ancient magical texts?
Oh, yeah, he's got a doctorate in classics. So Greek, Latin, Hebrew, all those languages, those old grimoires are written in no problem for him.
Okay, so brains, A&D mystical talent,
Yeah.
but there's got to be more.
Oh, there is. Big time. See, Dr. Skinner doesn't just study magic. He
Yeah.
believes it's an objective force, like gravity or something. Not just, manifesting your dream stuff.
Whoa, so he's saying magic is a real tangible thing.
Absolutely. Like a science with its own laws and rules. And to prove his point, he shares some pretty wild stories from his own magical practice.
Oh, I am so ready for this. Hit me with the best one.
Okay, you asked for it. So Skinner and his buddies rent this whole castle for a magical working... They're using the Goetia. Have you heard of that one?
Vaguely rings a bell.
It's basically this, demon catalog.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty intense stuff. Not exactly for beginners,
Definitely not your average book club pick.
No kidding. Anyway, their goal is to get a spirit to physically manifest, show itself in the material world.
Ambitious. So did it work?
Oh, it worked all right. Just not how they planned. Picture this. Middle of the night, they're in the thick of the ritual, and suddenly, birds start descending on the roof.
Birds. Seriously.
Yeah, tons of them. Even flying down the chimney, like something out of a Hitchcock movie.
That's crazy. But, how do we know it was the ritual and not just, I don't know, a random flock of birds?
Well, that's the kicker. The next morning, bird droppings were everywhere, except, get this, inside the magically drawn circle where they did the ritual.
Whoa. Okay, now that's just freaky. Even if you're not into the whole spirit summoning thing,
Yeah.
How do you explain that?
Right.
Did those birds somehow know to respect the magical boundaries?
It's like those birds knew where not to go.
Right. Hey, let's poop on everything except that weird circle over there. It's wild. Okay, I need another story. My brain needs more weirdness.
Okay, buckle up for this one. This time it involves a surprise guest appearance from, get this, Alice Bailey, the famous theosophist.
No way. As in the Alice Bailey.
The one and only. So Skinner and his friends are attempting to summon a spirit, right? This time they're after hidden grimoires like these super rare magical textbooks.
Oh, the forbidden knowledge trope.
Cool.
Classic.
So they're at the climax of the ritual, everything's all intense, and out of nowhere, one of Skinner's friends, just as a joke, blurts out an invocation to Alice Bailey.
Uh-huh. That's hilarious. Talk about ruining the mood.
You'd think, right? But you know how we talked about timing and precision in magic?
Yeah, messing with the delicate balance.
Exactly. Well, interrupting a ritual at its peak, especially with something so unexpected, it can have some wacky results.
Oh no, what happened?
The ritual seems totally busted, a total flop. But hold on, get this. The next morning, a dude shows up at their studio with a station wagon.
Okay.
It's filled with Alice Bailey books, and the guy's donating them to the university library where Skinner works.
Wait, seriously?
No lie. The universe was like, oh, you want to invoke Alice Bailey? Here's all the Alice Bailey you could ever want.
Haha, I love it. It's like cosmic payback for that last-minute joke.
Totally. And it shows how even a messed up ritual can have these unintended ripple effects, especially if you mess with the energy at that crucial moment.
It's like a reminder that even if you don't believe in magic, there's still a lot we don't understand about how things work.
Right. There are forces at play that we might not even be aware of.
So we've seen magic in action, but I gotta know, what's Dr. Skinner's take on how it all works? What's his philosophy?
He's all about what he calls practical magic. Super meticulous, almost like a scientist in the lab.
Makes sense, given his background.
Totally. And he believes that to work with these entities, these spirits, you need the right formula. Correct words, timing, directions, even specific smells. Get any of it wrong, and, well, you're in for a magical misfire.
Yikes. High stakes.
He even compares it to training a horse. You need firmness, boundaries, clear communication, not just good vibes or wishful thinking.
So it's not about just wishing things into existence.
Nope. It's about understanding a pre-existing system, a hierarchy, and working within those rules.
Now, gotta ask, what about all that other stuff we hear about? Herbs, crystals, natural magic? Where did that fit in?
Good question. Skinner acknowledges natural magic exists, but he sees it as separate from this spirit-focused grimoire tradition he's into.
So 2 different flavors of magic, both valid.
It's like 2 different approaches to cooking, right? Both get you a meal, but the ingredients and methods are different.
Okay, that makes sense. So natural magic's more about harnessing natural energies, while Grimoire Magic's all about commanding spirits. 2 paths, potentially powerful in their own ways.
Precisely. And speaking of commanding spirits, we gotta talk about the power of words.
Oh yeah, words can be powerful, all right.
In magic, they're not just metaphors. Skinner's actually translating this grimoire called the Summa Sacrae Magici, and it defines magic as, get this, signs of restraining evil and benevolent spirits by the name of God and by their own names and by the names of otherworldly things.
Whoa, so knowing the true name of something gives you a power over it.
That's the idea. Names, phrases, even the specific language you use, it all matters.
It's like those old myths where knowing a creature's true name gives you control over them.
Exactly. Makes you think about how casually we use language nowadays, doesn't it?
Yeah, we throw words around without much thought. But maybe we should be more mindful of their weight, especially in a world where information spreads so fast.
It's a good point. But back to the Summa Sacra Magicae. This grimoire puts God at the top of the magical hierarchy. Which brings up a tricky question. Whose God are we talking about here?
Ah, yeah, that's a big one.
Well, Skinner doesn't specifically call on the Christian God, but he does believe there's a hierarchy of entities, and at the very top, there's something powerful, some ultimate force. But he doesn't know its true name, so he doesn't try to invoke it.
Smart move. Don't want to mess with the big boss unless you know what you're doing.
Right. It's like Skinner says, it's above his pay grade to mess with that level of power. But whether you see this hierarchy as literal or symbolic, it shows that authority is a big deal in practical magic.
Knowing who's got power over whom. So you got to know the rules of the game before you start playing.
Exactly. And the Summa Sacra Magicae even gives you a cheat sheet. It's got this table with the names for God in Latin, Greek, Hebrew, Arabic, the whole shebang.
Wow, they really covered all the bases. So does the specific name matter, or is it more about the concept of ultimate power?
That's a question for the ages. Maybe it's both. But the key takeaway is that precision matters. Every detail could have consequences.
It's like baking a cake. You got to follow the recipe carefully, or you end up with a disaster.
Exactly. Especially when you're dealing with forces that are, well, beyond our everyday understanding.
Speaking of potentially disastrous outcomes, let's talk about the dangers of magic.
Yeah.
Skinner's pretty clear about that, right? Like, this isn't just fun and games.
Oh, yeah. He stresses the importance of starting small, respecting the hierarchy, and not jumping straight to summoning the big guns, especially not a certain demon named Paimon.
Oh no, what happened with Paimon?
Let's just say it was a learning experience, a very intense one. That's all I'm saying.
Okay, duly noted. So precautions are key. Don't summon anything you can't handle.
Like accidentally summoning a hurricane because you weren't careful with your magical meteorology.
Yikes, no thanks. So, consecrated circles, timing, directions, it's like a magical safety checklist.
And Skinner doesn't just focus on the technical stuff. He's big on mental health, too. He says magic attracts people seeking power, and if you're not careful, it can really mess you up psychologically.
So it's not just about protecting yourself from external forces, but also from your own inner demons, so to speak.
Very well put. It's a reminder that this is serious business, not a game.
Which makes me think about all those stories about a price to be paid for using magic. What's Skinner's take on that?
He doesn't really talk about a specific spiritual price like in those old folk tales, but he does acknowledge the risks, mental and physical harm, if you do magic wrong.
So no cosmic debt collector knocking on your door, but you got to be smart and respectful, or you might pay the price in other ways.
Right. It's like anything else in life. Knowledge without wisdom can be dangerous.
Okay, before we wrap at this part, I want to hear more about this Summa Sacra Magicae.
Right.
What makes it so special?
Oh, it's jam-packed with fascinating stuff. It describes King Solomon's rings who doesn't love magical artifacts. And these things called the 10 Kandari, super powerful talismans made from combined alphabets.
Wait, combined alphabets? Like magical calligraphy?
It's wild, right? And there are invocations for the 40 winds, which act as spirit carriers. Like the winds can literally carry messages to and from spirits.
That's some next level stuff. I'm getting serious Avatar, The Last Airbender vibes here.
It's epic, and the level of detail is insane. The Summa Sacra Magicae even gives you specific dates for when the seasons change, like a magical farmer's almanac.
Wow, they thought of everything.
And the history of the manuscript itself is fascinating. It traveled all over Europe, survived attempts to suppress it, and there were multiple failed attempts to publish it. It's like it was waiting for the right time, the right translator to finally come out into the world.
Sounds like destiny, right? Like it was meant for Dr. Skinner to bring it to light.
You could say that. And what's even cooler is the Summa Sacra Magicae supports Skinner's idea of a consistent underlying system of magic. He's worked with tons of different grimoires, and they all seem to point to this similar hierarchy of entities, like a universal blueprint.
So it's not just different cultures making up their own separate systems.
It's more like they're all tapping into the same underlying reality, just expressing it in different ways.
Like different languages describing the same fundamental truth.
Right. It's like they're all mapping the same uncharted territory, the hidden world of magic.
Mind blown. I gotta know more about this. But I guess that's a story for part 2. For now, I'm left wondering, if magic relies on these names and hierarchies, what happens when we forget them? Do those entities just fade away? Or do they find new ways to influence our world? Ways we might not even recognize?
That's a chilling thought, isn't it? Like, what if those forgotten forces are still out there, lurking just beyond our perception?
It's enough to make you look twice at those shadows in the corner of your room.
Welcome back, folks. We're picking up right where we left off with Dr. Skinner's magical adventures.
You know, I love digging for those connections. So we know he lived in Asia for over 20 years. What was he up to over there besides, exploring ancient temples and stuff?
He wasn't just sightseeing, let's put it that way. He was deep diving into the world of Chinese magic. Specifically, a system called F-Shu.
Feng-shui. Okay, that's a new one for me. Break it down for us.
Well, think of it as this whole umbrella of practices, divination, using talismans, rituals to influence luck, all sorts of things. It's deeply rooted in Chinese cosmology, their view of how the universe works.
And Dr. Skinner wasn't just reading about it in some dusty textbook, right?
Nope. He was working directly with Chinese magicians, learning the practical side, the hands-on stuff that you don't get from books.
That's so cool. So how does this Feng-shui compare to the Western Grimoire Magick that Skinner's into?
That's what's so fascinating. They're both dealing with unseen forces, trying to influence reality, but their approaches are totally different.
Different tools for different jobs, huh?
Exactly. And it shows how diverse magical traditions can be around the world. Each culture develops its own way of interacting with the unseen based on their beliefs and worldview.
So what's the verdict? Which system is better, F-shui or Grimoire Magick?
Trick question. There's no better. It's about choosing the right tool for the job. Skinner sees F-shui as faster acting than Grimoire Magick, but with a more limited scope.
Okay, so it's like, if you need a quick fix, Shushu might be the way to go. But if you're after something deeper, more profound, then Grimoire Magick's the path.
That's a good way to put it. Like, Shu might help you land a new job or smooth things over in a relationship, but if you want to communicate with spirits or uncover hidden knowledge, that's where Grimoire Magick shines.
I'm sensing a metaphor here. Like, Shu is the express train, gets you there quickly but with fewer stops. In Grimoire Magick's, the cross-country road trip takes longer, but you see more along the way.
I like that. And remember how we talked about natural magic? Well, Skinner sees a connection between Feng-shui and those practices too. Both involve working with the energies present in the natural world, whether it's herbs, crystals, or the flow of energy in your environment.
So it's all connected, in a way, like different branches of the same magical tree.
Exactly. There's this whole web of interconnectedness, and it reinforces the idea that there's no one right way to do magic. It's about finding the approach that resonates with you, your goals, and your beliefs.
It's like Skinner saying, hey, there's this whole magical playground out there, go explore. But with the caveat that you got to be careful.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially when we're talking about things like chaos magic, where intention is supposed to be everything, and you can basically shape reality through sheer willpower.
Yeah, that's where my head starts to spin a little. Like, too much freedom,
It can be overwhelming, for sure, especially for someone like Skinner who's so into structure and rules. He admits that chaos magic can work, but he doesn't fully understand why.
Makes sense. If you believe in a world with real spirits and entities, wouldn't you want to know the proper way to interact with them? Like, you don't just walk into a foreign country and start yelling random phrases, right?
Exactly. You got to learn the language, the customs, the rules of engagement. Otherwise, you might end up offending someone powerful or worse.
So with chaos magic, it's more like, hey, I'm just going to throw this intention out there and see what happens.
That's a simplified way to put it.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's a lot less emphasis on traditional structures and hierarchies.
And it works. Like, people are getting real results with this.
Apparently so, which makes you wonder, is it just the power of belief shaping the reality? Or is there something more objective at play that we don't fully understand yet?
It's like maybe there are multiple levels of reality operating simultaneously, and different systems of magic are tapping into different levels.
It's a mind-bending concept, isn't it? Like, what if our perception of reality is just the tip of the iceberg?
And magic is the tool that lets us glimpse what lies beneath.
Precisely. But it's not a tool to be used lightly. It's powerful, and with that power comes responsibility.
Which brings us back to Skinner's emphasis on ethics, right? He's not just out to accumulate power for power's sake.
Exactly. He sees magic as a path of exploration, understanding, and personal growth, not as a means to dominate or control others.
And he's not afraid to talk about his own mistakes, the times he messed up or pushed too far.
Which makes him all the more relatable, you know? He's not presenting himself as some infallible guru. He's a human being who's made mistakes, learned from them, and kept going.
And that's a valuable lesson in itself, right? Even the most experienced magicians are still learning, still growing.
Always a student, never a master.
I like that. So we've covered a lot of ground here. Grimoires, spirits, hierarchies, different magical systems, the importance of ethics. It's a lot to process.
It is, but it's all connected, like threads weaving together a tapestry.
And we're just starting to see the bigger picture, right? Like how all these seemingly disparate pieces fit together.
Exactly. And we haven't even touched on the philosophical implications of all this. Like, what does it mean for our understanding of reality if magic is real? What are the ethical considerations?
Those are some deep questions.
Yeah.
And I think we're ready to tackle them in part 3. Okay, brains are officially fried, but in a good way, right? We've explored the mechanics of Dr. Skinner's magic, the rituals, the entities, those crazy alphabets. But now I'm craving something more. Like, what's the big picture here?
Right. It's like we've been studying the individual brushstrokes, and now it's time to step back and take in the whole painting. What's the deeper meaning behind all this?
Exactly. What motivates someone to dedicate their life to this kind of work? What are the implications of interacting with these unseen forces?
Especially since Dr. Skinner isn't just theorizing about it, right? He's lived it. He's seen firsthand what these forces can do.
Okay, so let's dive into the deep end. Remember that question we posed earlier? What happens when we forget the names of powerful entities?
Ooh, yeah, that one was a doozy. Do those entities just disappear? Or do they, like, adapt? Maybe they're still out there, but we just don't recognize them anymore.
It's like imagining a whole pantheon of forgotten gods, just lurking in the shadows, waiting for their chance to come back.
It's a bit unsettling, isn't it? Like, what if the world is full of these unseen forces that we've lost touch with?
And if magic's real, like Skinner believes, how much of our reality is shaped by our own perceptions? What if those entities are evolving right alongside us? Maybe they're manifesting in ways that reflect our modern anxieties and obsessions.
Ooh, that's a good one. Like, maybe those ancient gods haven't disappeared, they've just, like, upgraded, expressing themselves in ways that make sense to us now.
So instead of plagues and famines, we get, like, internet trolls and reality TV.
Something like that. But it raises a fascinating question. Why are people drawn to magic in the first place? What are they searching for?
Yeah, it's not like everyone's running off to summon demons, so what's the appeal?
I think it's a mix of things, right? The desire for power, the thirst for knowledge, the longing for something bigger than ourselves. Maybe it's a way to feel more in control in a world that often feels chaotic and unpredictable.
And let's not forget the mystery. The allure of the unknown magic taps into that part of us that craves wonder and possibility.
Especially in a world that's become so hyper-rational, so focused on technology and logic, magic offers a glimpse into a realm where anything seems possible.
It's like that quote, magic is science that we don't understand yet.
I love that. But even if we don't fully understand it, we gotta approach it with respect, right? Which brings us back to Skinner's emphasis on ethics.
Yeah, he's not just about power grabbing. He sees magic as a way to learn, to grow, to connect with something larger than himself.
And he's super honest about his own screw-ups. The times he messed up, pushed too far, didn't fully think things through.
Which makes him seem more human, right? He's not some all-knowing wizard on a mountaintop.
Yeah.
He's made mistakes, learned from them, and kept going.
It's a good reminder that even the most experienced practitioners are still students, always learning, always evolving.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into Dr. Skinner's world, What's the big takeaway for you? What stuck with you the most?
For me, it's a reminder that magic isn't about escapism or wish fulfillment. It's about engaging with a deeper reality, a world full of unseen forces and possibilities.
It's a journey of exploration, experimentation, and ultimately self-discovery. But it's a journey that demands respect, both for the traditions and for the forces at play.
And it's not a journey for everyone, but for those who feel the call, it can be incredibly rewarding.
So, dear listener, as we leave you to ponder the mysteries we've uncovered, remember this: the magic is real. It's woven into the fabric of existence, waiting to be discovered. The key isn't mastering spells or memorizing incantations. It's about cultivating the right mindset, a blend of curiosity, humility, and an open mind. Go forth and explore.
And until next time, may your deep dives be filled with wonder and insight.